Weight loss injections like Ozempic and Mounjaro have been hailed as breakthrough drugs for obesity. But here's the twist: people stop taking them. Somewhere between 40 and 80% of people discontinue the drugs within the first year. So what is causing people to discontinue the drugs? Hi, I'm Luke. I'm a PhD student and a health economist at the University of Oxford with a keen interest in evidence-based decision making. In my last video, we talked about how, despite the huge benefits of GLP-1 medications, quite a lot of people seem to be discontinuing or stopping the medications, in which case around 2/3 of the weight lost is regained within the first year. In this video, I'm going to talk about the latest data for why people stop taking GLP-1s and why this matters for the future of obesity treatment. Just for those who aren't familiar with what GLP-1s are, they're a hormone that are naturally produced within the body that suppress appetite, slow down digestion, and increase insulin release. Essentially, it's your body's way of telling your brain that you're full. GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1, and receptor agonist is something that binds to a specific receptor within the body, in this case a drug. So GLP-1 receptor agonists like semaglutide are binding to GLP-1 receptors within the body, mimicking natural GLP-1 hormone, but in a longer, more potent way. In early 2025, researchers published a study in JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association Network Open. They used electronic health records to examine over 125,000 adults in the United States who had started a GLP-1 between 2018 and 2023, drugs like semaglutide, tirzepatide, and liraglutide. Some people were taking GLP-1s to manage type 2 diabetes, whereas other people were taking GLP-1s solely for weight loss purposes. The researchers then tracked how many people stopped and restarted treatment over a 2-year period and looked at factors that explained why people had stopped and started treatment. The results from the study were pretty striking. Around 65% of people without diabetes stopped treatment within a year, and around 47% of people with diabetes stopped treatment within a year. Around half of those with diabetes restarted treatment again, but interestingly only around a third of people without diabetes restarted treatment again. The authors acknowledge that GLP-1 shortages have not been accounted for within the analysis. This is a potential problem because it may overestimate the discontinuation rate and it may underestimate the reinitiation rate simply because people couldn't access the drugs due to shortages. What was particularly interesting in this study were the factors that were associated with discontinuation. In people without diabetes, people were more likely to discontinue if they were over the age of 65, and most importantly, if they'd experienced a gastrointestinal event. Gastrointestinal problems refer to things like nausea, diarrhea, constipation, and vomiting, etc. And adverse events is the medical term for side effects, an unwanted, usually mild to moderate reaction caused by a drug. Well, how common are gastrointestinal problems with GLP-1s? That's what we're going to look at now. But firstly, in clinical research, we need to remember that not all evidence is equal. At the bottom, you have evidence like expert opinions and case reports, useful but not very strong. At the top, you've got systematic reviews and meta-analyses. These are the gold standard because they combine results from lots of different studies, typically randomized controlled trials, that give us a more reliable answer than just one study alone. The 2021 meta-analysis combined information from 64 randomized controlled trials of GLP-1 receptor agonists versus a fake treatment, which looks the same but does nothing, called placebo. The research allows us to examine the risks of side effects like nausea and vomiting compared to not taking a GLP-1 drug. Let's start with nausea, one of the common side effects. On average, people taking a GLP-1 were 3 times more likely to experience nausea compared to those on placebo. But as with all adverse events, the specific drug matters. For example, people taking oral semaglutide were more than 5 times likely to experience nausea compared to placebo. Then there's vomiting. The average risk across the trials was around 3 times higher than placebo, and as before, some drugs had higher risk than that. On average, people taking GLP-1s were twice as likely to discontinue compared to people taking placebo, and that's a big deal. Because when you stop taking a GLP-1, we know from previous videos that the weight quickly goes back on. A lot of the information that I've just presented to you is weighted quite heavily on people with type 2 diabetes, and similarly it doesn't contain some of the newer medications like tirzepatide. However, when we look at a meta-analysis of the semaglutide STEP trials, these are in a population of people with obesity without diabetes, we see that people taking semaglutide were twice as likely to discontinue compared to placebo following adverse events. Interestingly, gastrointestinal events were also the main drivers of discontinuation in those trials. Even though symptoms are often temporary, they are common, and that sometimes is enough to push people to discontinue treatment. GLP-1s help people to lose weight, but there is a cost for some people in the form of gastrointestinal problems, and that's a trade-off that doctors and patients need to weigh up. Interestingly, going back to the original study, many people do go back to taking GLP-1 receptor agonists again, so people with diabetes, around 47% reinitiated treatment, and without diabetes it was around 36% that started treatment again. This shows that treatment for many people isn't linear. They start, they stop, they restart due to a variety of factors like side effects, costs and motivation. GLP-1s might be revolutionary, but they're not magic. And if a lot of people stop taking these medications and start taking these medications, and this is explained by observable factors, then we need to think carefully about how these drugs are being rolled out in clinical practice to not exacerbate health inequalities. There is currently a clear trade-off with GLP-1s between the weight loss and the tolerability of the drug. Tolerability meaning how easily or difficult you can live with the medication. So for example, if you experience a lot of side effects, then this wouldn't be very well tolerated. The good news, future generations of these drugs may be better tolerated with lower rates of side effects and better adherence, so the story here has only just begun. If you found this video interesting, please leave a like, subscribe and comment below what you think about weight loss injections. Cheers.